I, excuse me, have had many friends who've done the AmeriCorps program, not the National Civilian Community Corps specifically, but inspired by their stories and also just doing some internet research led me to apply to the NCCC.
Well, I found AmeriCorps online at the website. Looked it up. At the point, I was just coming out of high school, didn't really have much to do. Job market was, as it is now, quite frightful. And I applied, and I found out about 2 months later that I was accepted. I did not know that I was going to Mississippi at that point. They actually sent me their little acceptance letter, and it said I was going to Vicksburg, Mississippi, where I never even heard of it. And I showed up there a couple of weeks later and started my journey.
I was going to graduate from my school, a 2-year college with my associates, and I wanted to not transfer directly in to finish with my bachelor's, so I was looking to go into Peace Corps, which I realized they like you to have your bachelor's first, so I was kind of pulled off into the AmeriCorps route, and that's the first time I ever heard of it.
I talked to a friend of mine who had some experience with AmeriCorps, and essentially I had a degree that I wanted to use, and I didn't have very many opportunities to use it in the place where I was living. And so I was told by one friend, by another friend, hey, why don't you try AmeriCorps? And I applied to AmeriCorps NCCC, and I was one of 1 in 10 who were accepted, so it's pretty awesome.
It was definitely exciting. Mississippi seemed like it would be a whole nother world, and it is in a way, so it was very exciting to leave, actually.
Well, I had experience going to, I studied in Costa Rica, and I got a teaching English as a foreign language certificate. And so I had already had that kind of adventure, and I still had that adventurous spirit.
I just knew that I would be traveling. I knew I would be with 10 people from all over the country that were excited to do the same thing. And that's really all I knew about it.
A little overwhelmed. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. CTI is a very long and very strenuous area. They teach you a lot in a very small amount of time. It was interesting. I met a lot of people within the first few hours of arriving on campus. We had 150 people show up the same day around the same time, not knowing anybody, not knowing where we were from, what we did, really what we knew. We had people of different education backgrounds, different age groups, different everything, different races, different peoples, different communities, different life experiences, and it was quite overwhelming.
I was swept off my feet by the way so many people my age were working together for a common goal. That was the biggest impact it made on me. It's a very positive environment.
It was a lot like a mix between college and summer camp and perhaps military camp. I'd never worn a uniform so often. I remember the uniform was hard to get used to. It was interesting. It was like so much packed into this tiny, I mean, it's what, like less than a month? And you get CPR training, you get, CPR, American Red Cross, Serve Safe, just all these different areas, and it seemed like every day was something new.
It's a special experience. I come from a kind of a middle class neighborhood, mostly white. And it's certainly a really good experience to meet people of different backgrounds, different cultures, and different upbringings. and really get a perspective on life that you wouldn't have gotten without being outside home. And you get to learn a lot about this country and yourself.
There was something that made us all come do this thing that isn't completely usual along people's paths of going to school and then getting jobs and such. It was just a new way of doing something, to go off for 10 months and not be paid and not know people, and kind of like stepping out of your life for a minute. So, I mean, I was just intrigued by what that thing was that brought us all together to do that. And so it was cool to meet everybody who had come, and but it's like at the same time I felt connected to all of them, even though we were all very diverse.
That was one of the reasons I joined AmeriCorps. I really wanted to immerse myself in a diverse group of people, to come to understand people better. So while it has been challenging at times to understand where someone else is coming from, and also to allow them to understand where I'm coming from, it has been a very good experience, and it's opened up doors of communication and understanding that I didn't know were possible.
It was amazing. I'd never encountered such a, like you said, a broad spectrum of people. I remember there was a day in CTI where we kind of sat around and discussed our stories, and it was like they split us into two groups. They split each unit into two groups, I think, and it was a very intimate setting, and we went around the room, and it was just like mind-blowing how different it was an interesting, like wow, how different we are, and yet we're all here to serve. We're all here for the same purpose.
It was flood remediation in Atlanta, and it was I was on a composite team where they had taken a couple members from a couple of the different teams to make up our team, and I just remember we were just happy all the time. doing hard work during the day and then hanging out together in the evening times, and we just enjoyed each other's company a lot doing both, and I just felt like it was a really awesome, lucky experience.
First field assignment was building ADA ramps, American Disability ramps, in Jackson, Mississippi. It was a 6-week project. I honestly had no idea what I was doing, and I've never built a ramp before, especially not one that had all sorts of specifics to it and had to be a certain slant, certain build, certain degree of ramp. And it was a good experience, and construction is definitely one of my funnest things to do, and you learn a lot fast. I didn't really know what to think of it at first. It was my first really time being away from home. It was my first really real job, real responsibility, but it was eye-opening, and I learned a lot in that first project, and I've probably learned in a lot of others, because most of the information comes in that first round. You really you set your feet in that first round.
I think the first thing that comes to mind was this round when we were working with Hanging Rock State Park. There was one day where we met up with park rangers at the beginning of the day, and our task for the day was to mark some boundary for the state park that had never been marked before. So the first half of the day was we hiked probably 3 miles, did some bouldering up some rocky areas, and ended up having lunch on top of this beautiful mountain. Spent the rest of the day climbing down through the rockiest terrain that they hadn't ever mapped before as boundary of the park, painting the yellow stripes on the trees to mark the area where the park ended. and hiked for the rest of the day doing that, and clearing brush along the area where the boundary was. It was just a full day, a beautiful day, and I guess that's the most memorable for me.
Special training has been around the fact that we're a fire team. So we have Type 2 wildland firefighting certifications. And this means we've taken class S130 and S190. And so that's pretty specific. And then once we got here to this fire round project with the North Carolina State Parks, they refreshed those trainings for us.
Our team specifically has been trained by the North Carolina State Parks to all operate chainsaws, which is unusual. There are usually two sawyers, as they call it, chainsaw operators on each team, but our team, the whole team has been certified.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it wasn't for the people I'd worked with, I'd probably go insane just like everyone else. The people you work with, you're thrown in with them, and at first you're just like, who are these people? They're nothing like me. This isn't going to work at all. But that's really important because you get used to working with them, and you get used to all their quirky little things and their personalities. And regardless of what you may have not liked in the beginning, you get used to it, and you start to like it because it's something dependable. You know they are who they are, and you know you can depend on them.
Absolutely. Our team is a lot of fun. We have fun every day, and I don't think many people can say that about what they do. We play games when there's downtime. We usually have a frisbee or a hacky sack that we toss around. Laugh a lot. Just even under stressful situations, we can usually turn it into a positive experience.
It seems like everybody should have a job where they're helping people. They're helping out in the community, helping out. They're benefiting the nation in some way. They're not just taking. And that's something that I would not have thought I'd hear myself say 10 months ago or 7 months ago or whatever, however long it's been.
I mean, I guess the biggest part of it was just that we were going into people's homes that were like the people we know, like it's like they were just regular neighborhoods, and it could have happened to anybody. Their house just happened to be at the wrong part of the neighborhood, and mostly it's like the basement that gets hit first, and that's actually where people store things of their whole lives they build up. And so we would go into these houses and move out this stuff that people had had for decades, and then clean out their basement, or obviously the higher floors of their house if the water reached that. So, I mean, it was pretty emotionally, I guess it was pretty affecting and these people were so thankful that it was a pretty moving project, I think.
I heard it said in the beginning of CTI by one of my core members that it's a crash course in intimacy of all kinds, and I thought that was an interesting way to put it. That AmeriCorps is on a personal level, you really get to know people pretty fast. And you get to know their quirks, you get to know what bugs you about them, you get to know what you think is great about them, and over time, going on different spikes, you learn to get along with people.
Interestingly, you get to know people pretty fast, and our housing's really interesting. We live on a barracks on a state park, and we have one bathroom and 10 people. So you get used to taking 5-minute showers and going to the bathroom really fast, and also starting up your mornings really fast. Making the cereal real fast, and getting in the vans real fast, being ready to go real fast, and it's fun, especially being in the middle of the woods with no television, and really the only thing we have is the car radios for outside world, and we don't even use it because it's kind of like a mini vacation.
Well, one thing that the team has instituted as part of the culture since the beginning is this thing that we call pancake time. And it was like out of just the conversation of there may be a time this year when we're going to try and be as respectful of each other as possible, but there might be a time when I don't know if I'm going to be liable for my reactions to a situation. And so how are we going to warn each other of this specific moment? And someone said, like a word, like a word, and yeah, like a word would be a good identifier. And someone's like pancakes, pancake time. And so we've kind of followed through with that. The word pancake pops up sometimes throughout our spikes, and that just means you give someone a minute, no questions asked. And so kind of just having that understanding, and again, I think just always respecting everyone on the team, we get through it without too much trouble.
It's important to have good and healthy relationships with everyone you work with. You may have an argument, you may have a discussion, you may have a good time, but it's really important to keep in mind that these are people you're going to be around with all your life, and it's just like living with a family member. You may argue with a cousin, but if you let that deteriorate, you're going to have to see him all the time. It's just going to be horrible. So you really you get used to apologizing when something goes down on your end, and working things out, and keeping a healthy relationship physically and mentally with your teammates, and it creates a really good and special bond between teams, and it never really fades away.
Again, it all comes down to communication, and there's so many ways to say something and have it be misunderstood that I'm always reinforced on the idea that I could communicate something clearer. And it's funny because each person will hear it differently, so you learn how to communicate with each person as they kind of you find your groove with each person, as everyone's different. So just again, always communication is something that we can all get better at all times.
I didn't come into this year trying to change personally, but the program really sweeps you off your feet. It forces you to stand up in a lot of ways, and just you can't go through this program without standing up for yourself. So I think it's empowered me as an individual. It's definitely created a level of professionalism that I didn't understand beforehand, and it's also shaped me as a leader. It's given me a paradigm shift really about leadership, and how important it is, and how it can be such a beneficial thing when your leader is really thoughtful and committed to the group.
Motivation. Big change in me. I came out of high school very demotivated, didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't really care, I just wanted to get along in life, and AmeriCorps has taught me self-motivation as well as communication, not with my own communication, but also understanding other people's communication, and working with other people in a healthy way. And it's also opened my eyes to community service and service of others, which is really important. And there's nothing really like building a ramp, for instance, for someone you've never met, and having them come out with some fresh cooked home fish, and just smiles on their faces and nothing but thank you, oh Lord, thank you, here's some fish. Delicious. Absolutely, home cooking is fantastic. And there's nothing like it. people you've never met are incredibly grateful to you, and once you have that, you're good to go. You don't want anything else.
I guess as a person, I've just grown to realize that there are so many viewpoints that work just as good as my own, and that they can all be shared in a way where, you know, it's okay and we're all still happy after approaching problems in different ways, and you can still get things done and enjoy each other's company. And so I feel like you have to learn that in AmeriCorps because you live and work with these people, and it's just like, I think it's something that I've learned a lot, is just to really accept other people for who they are, and they all have something to give me to make me a better person too.
I don't think we have to other people. I don't think we have to put people into a box before we help them, you know, and say, oh, they are not us. They're just like us, you know. Even that is distancing. You know, this person is, you know, they're Katrina victims. They're just like us. No, they're Americans. I'm an American. I should help my fellow Americans. End of story.